Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming a character actress among character actresses, a true chameleon. You know the face, you don't know the name, Susan Barnes. Having her on the show today, she was in such classics as Repo Man. She was in many horror and sci-fi classics like Stranded, Bad Dreams, They Live. And of course, she was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in which she played a sexy actress walking around the set of Warner Brothers with a man's voice, in contrast to John Paragon, who had a woman's voice. And I'm having her on the show today to talk about how she got into acting, those movies, and much more. So, here is my interview with Susan Barnes. Hey, Susan.
Yes?
It's Tommy.
Hi, Tommy.
How are you today?
Well, it's a crazy day here. It's 81 degrees.
Really? Wow. Yeah, it's about that over here, too.
Yeah, but this is Pennsylvania.
Oh.
If this is a precursor to the summer, I'm gonna have to leave in winter and summer. I don't know. It's crazy. It's very beautiful, balmy, but it went up about 26 degrees, or 20. No, not that much, but let's just say yesterday was cold and rainy. I was wearing sweat clothes and I was still chilly. So we're having a California day.
Yeah. Well, it's such an honor because I've always considered you a chameleon in acting, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, wow. That was a very kind thing to say. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to talk about whatever I did. The cult ones, the independent ones that I was in, are closer to my heart than some of the very big films that I was in. Although there was one big film that I was very proud to be part of and fought to get into. So there's one on that list. But anyone that calls or approaches me to talk about the films that are close to my heart, that's real easy for me to do.
Well, my pleasure is your pleasure.
Well, thank you very much.
So, going back to the beginning, was acting on your radar when you were a child?
No. I'm sitting in the house that I was raised in, and I'm the fifth out of six generations in this village. A very tiny rural river town, southwestern Pennsylvania. And the only thing because I'm old now, I can say it, claim it, and know that I have a lot to look back on because that's lived a long life. So the only thing for girls, there were several things for girls growing up I'm on the front end of the boomers, was dance classes, baton twirling, and then anything that we could do off of Ed Sullivan, like put a shot glass of cherry pop on our forehead and try to do a back bend. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the level that, we had here. And I will say that the gift that I was given, actually, that was like kind of a God-given gift, was dance. I just was suited for it, and my body bent toward it. And so I started, I think, at about 5 years old in a tap class, a little local tap class, and was excelling by middle school. There was, I could even understand, not as much as others, but I was gifted. So I was a dancer. And I went to school to be a teacher, college, to be a teacher. And it was the last semester, it was my senior year in college, that they came recruiting dancers for West Side Story. And I'd never seen a play. So, I mean, I knew what West Side Story was from the movie, but they came looking for dancers for West Side Story from the theater division, and I got cast as anybody's. The little girl or the young girl in the Jets gang. And the moment I opened my mouth on stage and got a laugh, which was not available in that way for dance. I mean, you could do comical and get reaction, but it was like, whoa, that is very interesting. I've just spent 4 years studying the wrong thing. So, no, I never knew. I became interested in theater through dance and choreography and got a master's in theater, but an emphasis in directing with the choreography emphasis. I mean, a backup. I went down to Little Rock after I finished my graduate degree to see some friends, and a man there named Cliff Baker, young man, we were all young, very young, early 20s, had started a little theater in an ice cream parlor and asked me if I wouldn't be an actress for him. And I sort of learned on my feet in Little Rock. And it was real bad, really bad for a long time. But I was forced, into whatever method I found. But honestly, I loved that you said that you felt I disappeared. I never came at acting from a vanity standpoint, like I might have through dance, because I was not there. I was the vehicle for that character. And that's really what interested me and what I really tried to hone the work around, serving that character. And it was wonderful for me. But I also was never satisfied that I ever really got to the core. Now that's theater. Now that's very different. I got picked up in Little Rock, Arkansas by George Peppard and Agnes Moorehead. Agnes Moorehead became a mentor to me when she toured her one-woman show before she died for ABC. She did a beautiful theatrical piece of much of the stuff she'd done for the Mercury Theater and Orson Welles, his company. And I was sort of her liaison between the theater and the hotel. And she made me think that I should be stepping into AAA ball, that I ought to step up and see what might happen. And George Peppard came through doing a film that he was directing, was a road film. And he hired me first to be in the movie, which was really my first real experience with film. And when he found out I had a master's, he hired me to stay on the film and be his son to Elizabeth Ashley Christian Peppard, to be his tutor, because he was in the film as well, and they needed a teacher everywhere. So that's how I got to Hollywood and film acting. It was a really, as I have said many times in my life, I stumbled and arrived. I stumbled into some people or a dance concert that I was doing to meet other people, and arrived at a place in my life where I should have been in order to go on and do what I eventually did to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that was a real long way around the corner to get to. No, I never thought I'd be on television. I never thought I'd be on a major stage in any of the regions or abroad. I never thought I'd be in a movie, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Just was coming to a point and meeting certain people and then making a little curve here and there that I ended up in L.A. and was immediately told at 28 that I was too old
Mm-hmm.
for a career. And that made me mad.
Good.
You know, I'm from these short Irish women here that we don't take kindly to being told we can't do something unless we've tried and failed.
Yep.
So that's kind of what got me there. And then because it was at the beginning of theater development in Los Angeles, I was there at a time, I think, it was the transition. It had gone, one studio still had contracts,
Mm-hmm.
and that was Universal. And Warner Brothers had a sort of mentorship kind of thing going on as well when I first arrived. But it had gone from the studio system to the independent filmmakers, and I mean like Warren Beatty and, that crew, the next crew after the golden era. So I really felt like, in looking back, it was a great time to show up because things were changing and interesting people were doing, really interesting things, John Cassavetes, and there was stuff around that was exciting. Altman with 3 women, and it was a transition, and that meant that there'd be another beginning, and that's the stuff I love, is the beginning. My association with Sundance was real early. It was the first decade, and it was pure, and it was about the work and the writer and the message and nothing else. Nothing business.
Mm-hmm.
When I mentor kids, I always say to them, they don't call it show art.
Yeah.
It is, it is its own animal, and you have to learn to navigate what that is. And that's aside from the work or any art that you might feel is involved.
Right.
Because the small screen and the big screen are their technical mediums. And we are very necessary, but we're one small piece of that puzzle. It takes 400 plus, and I'm sure many more on even larger films, to make that film. And everybody's necessary. But you have to know your little puzzle piece, and that's that. Very different from when the curtain opens on a piece of theater. And it's now both in your control and your responsibility totally.
Mm-hmm.
So there are such different mediums that it's hard to compare them. It's hard to compare them.
Mm-hmm.
But I did stay, and I did go in working, full-on working, 30 out of 30 plus years, 33 years or 32 years. I don't know how many years I was there, but I have no idea how I had the life I had. And the wonderful, truly wonderful, and just the most extraordinary experiences with the most extraordinary people worldwide. But I'm grateful that I came from the kind of women I came from, which was, take on every challenge and really jump and get after your weaknesses as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And recognize them. So, it was my grandma, who was my 5th grade school teacher, 2 houses down on the corner, and my mom, and really Well, my father was maybe the most honorable man I ever met, and I'm sure everybody thinks their dad is, but I mean, I saw it through his life and how he lived it, and the big, big hurdles that were put in front of him, and how he faced those with grace. And that's what kept me in Hollywood, was in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Was, no, I wasn't raised to be told that I'm something that I'm not, and to let that get in my way. So it was a stumble and a rise wherever I rolled, and it also gave me a big background of really good people that were doing things for the right reasons. So I always had a reference point if I got too confused. And they let me know it, let me tell you. Good friends are real important, too.
Yes, they are. You did 5 episodes of my favorite sitcom, Laverne and Shirley.
Yes, and then they wrote me a recurring role. This happened to me a lot, that I would get a recurring role, and then they decide to shut that would be the last season of the series. But yes, I did at least 5 for them, and then they created a character for me. That was my first real TV show, was an episode called Shirley and the Older Man.
I love that episode.
With Robert Alda.
Yeah.
Alan Alda, the great Raw. I mean, that guy was the greatest gangster in the 40s ever.
Yeah.
Played my father. Yes, that was my very first. And that set off something that was so special, because Gary Marshall came from the theater, and he believed in ensemble, and he believed that just because somebody had played one character, that didn't mean they couldn't come in and create something else. And he liked having people around that he knew that he was comfortable with. It really was like a big Italian family, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised to see that was not the nature of most dramas or comedies. That people, once you got hired, that was it. You were done with that show.
Mm-hmm.
That was a surprise to me. But that group were so smart. It was a combination of Carnegie Mellon people from here in Pittsburgh,
right.
Lenny and Squiggy, and of course Harry Shearer was writing for them, and I back and forth. But right through the writers, that was really a perfect way for me to step into the world of television, because it was 3 camera, and that was like stage. You didn't have to pay attention to where the camera was. The camera was covering. And you played it, it really was a 1-act play every night that we filmed. It worked the same way. You had your blocking, and it made sense to me. And so it was really the gentlest, best way for me to get in. And it was because of Chris Thompson, who at the time had just been made producer. He'd been a writer, a very young guy. God rest his soul. He passed away a few years ago. And he saw me in a very bad play, but he brought me in, and I started working for them. And Paramount was really, I considered Paramount sort of my home lot for most of my career until toward the end. But I spent a lot of time on Paramount. It was right down the hill from where I lived. It was really ideal. And so that's where I say I stumbled in to be doing a play that wasn't all that great at a tiny theater in Hollywood, and Chris Thompson some other people came, and the next thing I knew, I had an audition for a great show, funny show, and that was a very sweet time. That was at the beginnings are very, very, very sweet, and that was the beginning of television for me. And
yeah, I've interviewed Squiggy and Penny Marshall's daughter Tracy. They've got great stories about the show and stuff. I always heard, though, through the press, that, there was a lot of out of control stuff that happened on that set.
Well, you have to also consider the time, because when you get to where I am, you take a look at things in generations, really, and that time in Hollywood, like I said, was going from the most controlled situation, which was the studio owned you. Mm-hmm. And you got this check every week, and they took care of that and all of that, but they owned you. And they told you what you would do and wouldn't do, and, kept you from doing jobs that were offered. This was the sort of easy rider break.
Right.
Now, I wasn't around in Hollywood, but a mentality of film and filmmakers, and there was, it was a very, I would say, because I was an outsider and I was viewing it, I was almost like a voyeur in many cases, that I was in it, but I was also watching it at the same time, because it was very different from anything I had ever known, being an East Coast, small town, sorry. I'm trying to, let me just bring down the sound. There's a phone call coming in, sorry. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure if you call on the landline, that's why I have the sound up on it. But anyway, it was a very hedonistic period of time in California. It was a lot of parties, big parties, and not that they don't happen now, but this was like, and they'll just refer to it and say, well, that was the 80s,
Yeah.
There was a sort of social, cultural kind of shift happening, and it was, you really had to know who you were. I would say that. I was always grateful that I arrived in Hollywood at the age I did, because I had some life behind me. Mm-hmm. But if you were very young or very prone to flattery or any of that, you could be in some trouble. And the set, that's when I said it was a special set insofar as people trusted each other, mm-hmm. were open with each other on that set. And you knew how people felt about everything. And which was a shock to me when that, of course, was not sort of the way it was on other sets. Maybe as a series regular, but not as a guest star. And it was special in that way. And it was special because chunks of writers had known each other since they were young. Harry and Michael and David all went to Carnegie Mellon together. There was that East Coast infusion of humor, and so it was a different place. And in a way, all of those sets, Gary's shows were more familial than anything. And it was a time, I will say, that boundaries were being pushed, but it was societal. It was more than just the set. It was the way it was. Mm-hmm. And that's about, as much as I can fill you in. Because people were very different there. from each other. Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams were, as different as an East Coast Italian girl raised in Brooklyn and a Valley girl. Their approaches to acting and the way they got into acting, and but then you had the combos of people like David and Michael. That they were like butter because they'd gone to school together. They knew every signal. They knew probably what each other was going to say in an improv before it was said. So you had all sorts of influences. And that's where I say I was like a voyeur because I knew I was from the East Coast and from a certain level in society that was conservative and very encouraging, though, very supported. But California was something that I saw in a Gidget movie in 8th grade. And it was still that then. With the blue skies and the palm trees and everybody in good shape most all the time because it's warm and people have to expose their bodies. And, it was just like, well, this is like a movie set.
Yeah.
And, and then I'd roll down the hill in my 67 Volkswagen Beetle to Paramount and drive on the lot just as proud as the, Bentley in front of me and the Jag behind me. So it was, for me, I was always, and it remained such for most of it, that I was a little on the outside watching it all, as well as, holy cow, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm. And then you got to be in a quirky cult classic that's immortal called Repo Man.
I have a couple of those. Not anything like Repo Man, but a Matthew Bright's movie Freeway, and then which isn't really that culty, but I did a small role in The Vanishing, which was very culty to me. I know it was a remake, and the same director, and he was a very interesting individual. I never knew anything like that little guy, but Repo Man was like just eating, the best chocolate in the world that you love, or whatever it is, because more just kept coming and coming from it, because of what it started out and tried to maintain. For the most part, it did. What Alex was after, because that was to be his master's thesis at UCLA. That was what Repo Man started off as. Was Alex Cox's presentation for his master's, and I don't know all the little quirks that happened, but it happened that somehow Alex understood that if he could get Harry Dean to do this movie, because Harry Dean was getting ready to do Paris, Texas, with the cinematographer, then, what's his name? Cinematographer Robbie Mueller was the cinematographer,
right,
who was getting ready to shoot Paris, Texas, and they agreed to do this for Alex because it was, an in-between period of time, very little budget, and Emilio was already signed as well, and as I understand, somehow some of the footage, and I don't know if it was Alex that took it to him, but Michael, what's his name, from the Monkees? Michael
Nesmith.
Yes, Michael. So sorry. I'm old. I don't remember names, but anyway, yeah. When he came on board, then it shifted, and they had money to do what they needed to do. But that was always in our heart of hearts, just a really great time to do a student film. And even though, because, and God, bless Harry's soul too, he's now gone, but talk about living a long and wonderful and filled up life. Harry and I clicked on that. We were the two that, stood by the buildings and smoked as much as we possibly could and became friends on that film. And I will tell you that I don't know how old he was. I'm thinking that if I was in my early 30s, he must have been in his early 50s, but I saw him sprint straight up a freeway ramp chasing Alex Cox. and with one hand did this like Burt Reynolds or MacGyver slide across the hood of that Ford convertible that the guy drove and chased him with a baseball bat, was going to kill him. And, wonderfully, it was that kind of great time all the time, and we had no clue. Maybe somebody did have a clue, but there were so many talented young people, right down to the casting director, who I just adore, Vicki Thomas, who is 10 years to the day younger than I. That everybody on that film, nobody had a bad time. I mean, Alex might have been pulling hair at points when we needed to get shots because we had to leave a location, and that probably was happening, but I was not paying attention to that. I was just always so glad to be on that set. It made me laugh all the time, and people made me laugh all the time, and to be able to work with Emilio at the beginning of his career, he was just such a fuzzy little guy there. That was lovely, and to then be able to track him and from time to time speak to him, was very proud of how he developed and what he's been doing. It's just nobody knew what was going to happen with that, and ironically, it is the one thing that on occasion, because I tried my best to not look like me as much as I could in any character I did. I just tried my best and was pretty successful for the most part, but just recently, twice, once in the state of Washington and taking a train from Portland back to Tacoma, Washington, just a month ago, I was recognized by two people for being Agent Rogers. A young girl it's this age group from a certain age up until like late 40s. Mm-hmm. They were the people in their late 40s that are, that film's their film. Were like in junior high when it was made. So there's this kind of wide range, and then this new group that keeps discovering it. And, but yeah, on a train, a young woman asked me, and I think it's my voice, actually, that people key into and then go, wait a minute, because I did my best, and I to make sure that I was working all the time and as anonymous as I could possibly be, because I saw what celebrity and high profile meant, and that was everything to me. That was your independence. That was it. You're giving it up. And that was too scary for me. So I'm down the pike enough now that I was shocked that two young women, both I would say were in their 30s, that they recognized me and
yeah.
say smile because there's the other part of it. You got to be careful what you do because it is on film forever.
Right.
You know, there's that aspect too. So, yeah, it's a little film that just keeps on giving. And I was invited. I'm sure both Larry and Amelia had been as well and didn't go, but I think it was in 2004. There's it's a film festival, but it's a whole lot more than that in Atlanta, where there are multiple screens, drive-in theater, multiple screens, and it's a big weekend where people camp, or there's the classic cars. There are vaudeville strippers. And they play cult films. And in 2004, I believe it was, that I was invited to go there because Repo Man was the headliner film that was going to be shown. Mm-hmm. And I spent a couple of days in Atlanta at this place, and it was shocking that in 2004, 20 years later, that people were yelling lines from the film at me that were my own lines, and I had forgotten. It was like, did I say that? Because I'm not somebody that watches their work. I have to let a lot of years go by before I can take a look at anything I ever did on film. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. And I will say the first time I saw my face on the big screen, all I could think about was, revealing, however, was that my nostril looked the size of Lake Erie on a screen. All I could see was like, wow, that was like a big lake.
A lot of actors can't see themselves on screen.
You see, so, if I'm going to center in on a nostril, I got to give it up.
Yeah.
I was, like I said, with theater, I was always working every night, trying to make it better, never settling in, because I never felt like, I never really totally 100% got it, but that's impossible anyway. Those are once in a lifetime, one-time things. So I could not watch it. I could not watch anything I ever did. But years later, I watched Repo Man. I don't know, maybe. I was at the screening, the premiere screening.
Yeah.
But I wasn't seeing it, and I would cover my eyes when sometimes I would just look down because I couldn't watch myself. So I knew that the film was intact and that everybody liked it, but I didn't see it for about 5 years. And then I picked it up and watched it, and I just, I could see why everybody loved it. But there were two storylines, my storyline and Olivia's storyline, the little Mooney girl, a little love interest. Her storyline, ours were cut way, way, way down. And it was in my opinion, of course, some of the best stuff that she had and I had in terms of the irony and the wink and all of that, they were gone. But I think, there was like probably about 4 hours of film, that was there. And mine was anti-government. Because this was a view of Alex from the outside, talking about a voyeur. He didn't know what a Repo Man was. And somebody, told him, and he went looking to see what the people are paid to go and steal their cars back, and, it was fascinating to him. So this was an outside Brit view of us. and the government. And it was a lot more, corrupt in the government from my character's angle than got in the film. And the same thing for Olivia, because they didn't want to take on cults. But this all, this is where I say you do your job and then you leave it with film and television, and then they own it. It's when then I think a studio would attach, and they had their, they had their notes and their opinions, and the film had to be cut. And so a large portion of my work went on the editing room as Olivia's work. But that's just the way it is. That was shocking to me to begin with, but that's because I didn't understand the way movies are made at all. Had no clue.
My earliest memory of you was when you were in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Well, that's because Paul, I knew many people that had gone to Boston University that Paul knew. We had a circle of theater friends. And I was doing a play on the Sunset Strip at that point that ran, actually, I think, as long or longer than Paul's show, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, at the Roxy Theater.
Right.
This was a play by Tom Ian, who wrote the book for Dreamgirls. It's his play, Women Behind Bars. And that was also a cult theater hit. And Paul came and saw me in that show and in that play, and he just called up and said, hey, come down, pick out a costume, you and John, figure out, like, what you want to say, and be in my movie. And that's when I met Tim Burton as well. And, so that was a kind of highlight for me, just walking around, because I'm 5 foot. I was 5'3", I'm probably 5'1" now, but I'm this tiny person who appears to be tall in heels, but I would never be hired as a showgirl, ever. I mean, maybe in a little person's review, because I'm a little person. So that's, I was getting to be a showgirl, and Milton Berle was on the set.
Right.
Uncle Milty with his cigar.
Yep.
And that was kind of like a flash to my childhood, because we had a Sunday night show that we watched as a family, and it was Milton Berle. It was like, whoa, this is a guy from the golden age. And that was 2 days on set that I did nothing but Hartman and I, God rest his soul too, we just stood to the side and laughed. And you're picking all these films that were really a joy, like a memory that is so pleasant. Makes me smile. Makes me smile to think about them. But yeah, that one, they manipulated my voice on that one a little too much, I believe. But
it was a good joke, though.
I adore Paul. He was a genius. The way he brought all those layers in his kids' show. I think he was really a brilliant guy.
Yeah, I met Paul a couple of weeks ago. I was in L.A., and I went to the horror convention he was at, and he's a very sweet man. Oh,
no, he's a terrific guy. Lovely. And his own comic genius again. I was there. We were all coming up together at the same time and able to watch people take a seed and just, turn it into the biggest sunflower you ever saw, because they were that talented. I mean, I was very lucky that those were the people I ran into. And, I watched them, and they made me better anytime I was around them. So, if I might ask you, how did you find Repo Man?
I thought Repo Man, I've always thought that it's a quirky, iconoclastic movie. I mean, it's a movie that could not be made now, and it was never made before that or since. It's just a very unique film.
Yeah, all right. I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is a callback. I want to call back to when you were saying that there were outrageous things that happened on, like Laverne and Shirley set, and I said it was its own time.
Right.
That's what I'm referring to. Just exactly what you said. What was happening through those 80s and the middle 80s, especially something like Repo Man? No, that was its time. Its time was right then, and then it was there for everybody to see, almost a classic when it was released, because that time had already passed. Like punk, it's time. All of that was happening at the same time, and so it was a kind of an era, the 80s era, and you're right. And it couldn't have come, I don't believe, from an inside view, from an American's perspective. What made it what it was Alex looking at it from the outside, like Hollywood was something to be viewed for me, as well as working in it. But I was watching it as well as experiencing it, literally. And Alex was watching America as well as literally experience it. And Alex, I got to know Alex beyond that film, which I loved, because I ran into him in Inverness, Scotland, when I don't know, I think the film was out. I'm not sure, though. In 84, I went to the Edinburgh Festival with two other actors with a play called Still Life, and we won a lot of awards there, and they moved us to London. And in one of those weeks that I had off, I took a train. I wanted to go up to the islands in Scotland where they only spoke Gaelic, which was like the Isle of Skye and Roos, and you had to go up to the top of Scotland. I was in the train station in Inverness, Scotland, and ran into Alex, which was like crazy. And he was basically had been in London. He was casting Sid and Nancy, and was telling me all about this British actor that he found to play Sid Vicious that was wonderful. And of course, it's Gary Oldman, who then I got to work with in another what I consider cult film that got kind of messed up because it got re-edited. It's not the director's edit or score, but another film by Matthew Bright, who did Freeway, called Tiptoes, with a fabulous cast. That was, my second one from Matthew, and Peter Dinklage and Patricia Arquette and Kate Beckinsale played my daughter, and Matthew McConaughey. I'm sorry that film ended up like it did, because it would be a classic as well. But they re-edited it for some reason, and the score was not the director's score, and it suffered for that. But I worked with Gary on that film too. But Alex then came and saw the play at the Donmar Warehouse in London, and brought his parents, and that got to meet. So I got a different hit of Alex at home. He was really being an expat. His experience first in America, he really was loving America and questioning it at the same time. At the same time, a young man, they were all, everybody running it, they were like UCLA students. Vicky, Thomas, the Cassidy, they were putting this film together, student film. They were all young, just thrilled. We were all thrilled, and it made me thrilled to be with them because this was their first dive in, and what a dive it was. But it couldn't have been the way it was either if it wasn't Alex Cox looking from the outside in and giving us what he was seeing, his point of view. All the generic food, everything was generic. It was like, he saw that. And he went on to make other great films. But it's always good there to be in the beginning. That's the way I feel. The beginning, the development of, that's the best. That's the best for me as an artist. I like to be part of that.
You got to co-star with my friend Jennifer Rubin in Bad Dreams.
Yes, that was another one. I mean, you're just naming all these ones that nobody, I barely remember to say. It was, it's been a decade now since I retired. And I did retire. I didn't, I haven't been dabbling here or there at all. It was like either in or out. And, but that was another one where it was loving. Everybody was just loving on that movie. And I believe at the time, Jennifer, she was either with or recently married to my friend Elias Koteas.
Right.
And I didn't know Elias at that point yet. And as I remember, Jen, everything, those of us that were acting with her for the most part had some experience by that point. And so everybody, I believe this might have been her first film because she, of course, was known
her
for the
second
beauty that she is, which as a model.
Yeah.
And maybe she had done something that I didn't know about, but I believe this was her first big role.
It was her second. She did Nightmare on Elm Street 3 before this.
Oh, okay. All right. And I only saw the first Nightmare on Elm Street because I get scared. And I live alone. So I have to have buddies to see any of those films. But, in seeing Nightmare on Elm Street 2, I mean, one, I got to, I don't know if Freddy got worse or any of that, but it was so damn good that it was like, I don't need to see 2, 3, or 10. Do not. And Patricia was just that budding flower of a girl in that film. She is so beautiful. But, Bad Dreams was great from beginning to end again, and all the crew members and everybody just loving on everybody all the time, truly. Because it was quirky, we were in weird places to shoot it, and it was a great ensemble of people, and of course, one by one, we were getting killed off. And I'm forgetting if his name was Fred. Was it Connie? Where's Connie and Fred? Where's Connie and... I can't remember his name. Louis Giambalvo played my love interest in that thing. And I know I got chopped up in some kind of fan or something.
Yeah.
Connie and Ed, his name was Ed. They wore those T-shirts on the day that we were getting killed. People made up T-shirts that said, "Where's Connie and Ed?" I mean, it was that kind of a set. You know, everybody was like, because by that time we were further down the line in getting killed than some people.
Yeah.
And I know that I believe there was a line where people were going up and down the hall trying to find everybody to see if everybody was okay, because hands were coming out of the heating unit in the ceiling. Just, you know, and they did. Somebody made up I don't know if it was props or who. There were quite a few people wearing "Where's Connie and Ed" T-shirts on the day we got killed. We got creamed. That was a great one, too. You forget about it. I'm glad you're reminding me of these things, Tommy, because I haven't thought about them in a long, long time. And everyone you're bringing up, young man, it's just making me giggle. So I love you for that.
Oh, thank you. I'm an old soul, yes. Do you still talk to Jennifer?
No, I have not. You know, it's when you're there, and for a time after you're working together, you have to bond. You step on, there's 400 people there, and you really have to trust that the top people will be there, and that you need to, do what they need you to do to secure that everything's okay in their department. And for me, I made as many and longer-lasting friends with crew than I did with actors. But I certainly came away with a lot of friends. Now, we stayed in touch. We had a nice party. I remember that. I also remember, I believe that I was in touch. I'm not sure if I was or just thinking this, that when I found out that her marriage was dissolving, that I may have reached out then. But I didn't know Elliot then, and I got to know him, very well through a couple of different projects. And I just assumed they were too young, because they were both young, for sure, when they were married. Because he's an extraordinary guy, really. Elliot has a lot of talent, and in many, many areas. I mean, he's just the most fascinating guy. So they were a beautiful couple. They really were. But no, I lost touch, and I don't know if Jen stayed in the business or...
I can tell you. She does act on occasion, but she mostly teaches swimming to kids out in L.A.
Okay. Well, she had a swimmer's body, that's for sure.
Oh, she still does.
Yeah. She was a beautiful, beautiful girl, but she had long, lean muscle. She had a swimmer's body.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any memories from John Carpenter's They Live?
Yeah, all good as well. John I met when I was doing Women Behind Bars. That was kind of a celebrity-filled cast. And Adrienne Barbeau and John were married at the time. And Adrienne and Linda Blair was in that cast. I think but anyway, Adrienne and I were working together on stage. And I met John through Adrienne. And we had a lot of things in common in terms of, like, music, and, I just sort of knew John at that point, of course, his film Christine, I believe, was about to come out, or he was working on it right then. And, I know I was around for that premiere, because the woman that I worked with, that was my partner, we were partners in crime in this play. Lou Leonard, John put her in as a waitress in Christine, so he must have been shooting it then. And then there was a casting woman who is now John's wife, his second wife. Her name was Sandy King, and she's Sandy King Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And Sandy, there was a movie for television which was called She's in the Army Now.
Oh, I love that movie.
Okay. Well, that was Jamie Lee, the young Jamie Lee, who had just come off John shooting Halloween, and Melanie Griffith and Julie Carmen, and me and Demita Jo Freeman. I'm sure I'm leaving some women out. But there was the next connection to John on that film. Sandy King was not the casting. She wasn't in casting. She was the script coordinator on that movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's in the Army now, and we all pretty much bonded on that film because it was, there was primarily women, and we were shooting in San Pedro, way down at this ex-Army base in San Pedro, and we were staying in the, Roach Motel because there was nothing down there. We were all sort of bound together like a unit. And Sandy was, part of the girls' club. And years later, I ran into her, and she was, by this time, John and Adrian were divorced, and Sandy and John had been a couple for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And she was doing script supervision for him, and They Live was about to be cast, and she said she ran into me, and he said, yeah, let's find her something to do. So that's how that film came about, it was just a gift from Sandy and John, really. And it was a gift, because Roddy Piper was one of the greatest guys I ever met, totally in love and devoted to his tiny little wife and two little girls. That was like magic to watch, because literally he would be holding both girls, and I'm going to say they were probably like 4 and 6 or 5 and 7, that age. They were certainly enough that they had their full-on personalities and were really used to articulating to adults. And his wife was this beautiful, tiny, dark-haired woman, tiny. I mean, he really could have held all three. I mean, he would walk around carrying both those long-legged girls, one in each arm, no problem. And to watch him with his family, and that he really was a good actor and wanted to be a good actor. He wanted to learn. He was asking questions, and it was lovely. And, John is just the easiest, nicest, now if you did something inane or stupid, believe me, he'd come up on you, but he just was easy rider. I mean, just so calm, always. And we were, at sets that were fabulous, like a tent city built on the edge of L.A. and downtown, and just, just the greatest group of people ever. And that's when I realized that Keith David could sing exactly like Nat King Cole. And I made him sing.
Yeah, he does.
Every day I'd be like, come on, give me something. And, he would sing My Funny Valentine, and you would close your eyes and it would be Nat King Cole. So these are great memories you're asking me about, and these are the films that, except for Repo Man, that rarely anyone asks me about, because I was in some other films that were big films, blockbusters, and they usually go for those. But I'm glad to say that everything you've mentioned was just sweet memory. And those are few and far between, let me just tell you. There were years in between all the films where they were all shot like in a real short period of time that was the same time.
Yeah.
Because there were films that I was on for long periods of time, once 16 weeks, in the most beautiful setting, and if I had any suicidal tendencies, I would have been gone from this earth. Because they were that rough to deal with. They were that bad. So, but you are singing all the sweet songs, Tommy.
Thank you, Susan.
Me. And, I was kind of sorry that, I left the business when I believe there was probably more work ahead for me, but I made a decision to caretake my mom, and that wasn't a decision at all. That was just going to be happening so that my mom could die here at home. And so I was always sorry I never got to work with John again, because it was great. And I mean, at the end of the day, people picked up guitars and sat around, and nobody really wanted to leave unless the sun was coming up and we had to get some sleep for an all-night shoot that day. That was, I was sorry not to be able to work with him again.
Yeah, he's a genius.
I was sorry that, I always loved working with Mike Figgis. My first one with him was Leaving Las Vegas, and that's the one and only time that I really finagled my way in and got the casting director to let me meet with him, because there weren't any female roles per se beyond Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a whole lot of roles for men that could be played by women, and I convinced Mike Figgis to let me play the motel manager, and I was really proud to be part of that film. And that came from a personal place where I had a friend, childhood and high school dear friend, who drank herself to death at 42. And I knew that was a truth that could happen, and wanted to be part of that film. And Mike Figgis gave me a break, and then gave me a break, because in my scene he stayed on me instead of the star, instead of Elizabeth, and really gave me screen time, which was very unusual. I did get to work with him again in a Wesley Snipes movie called, what's the title of that? I'm bad with the titles and names, but it was low to me. It was Nastasia Kinski and Wesley Snipes.
That does sound familiar. Not Jungle Fever, no.
No, but it's a similar situation. Okay, I don't remember. It's also directed by Mike Figgis. I'm so sorry. I'm old. That's all I can say. It was in my head, but when it pops out, it's gone. It'll come back about 6 o'clock tonight. So, it's one of those. But you can look it up, because Mike Figgis directed it, and it starred Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
And Angela Bassett, I'm not sure who was in it. Anyway, I got to work with him a second time. I liked working with him.
Oh, One Night Stand. It was called One Night Stand.
Exactly. That's it. I was thinking like Lost Weekend. I mean, that was in my head. It was like this because it was about a discretion,
Yeah.
And, And, Mike also is a guy that looked toward ensemble in terms of hiring people from one film to the next. And so did Jan de Bont, actually, in Speed and Speed 2. He brought people back that had done things for him.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I watched...
You mention it. Those lesser ones that had less money, less time, all that. There was another one, Meet the Applegates.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, I watched it last night. I hadn't seen it since I was in high school, and I forgot how funny it was.
Yeah. We, unfortunately, that little film got lost because, I don't know if it was, I want to say, like Orion. Somebody owned it for distribution, whoever it was, and they went bankrupt. And it sat on a shelf until somebody else picked it up. And I don't remember how long it was, but it was just long enough for Arachnophobia to come out and have hit. And it got lost. It got a little lost because it got put on the shelf before another distributor got to it. And that one was really just one of the best times of my life, because we were in this beautiful little town of Appleton, Wisconsin, which is Willem Dafoe's hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And people were so nice, and we had a ball as a cast, and Michael was just the most loving director. Everybody was. V. Neal, V was on that film.
Oh, I'm having her on soon.
Won Academy Awards for her makeup. And
yeah, I'm going to have her on soon.
Oh, please, when you do say that, Susan Barnes said, I loved you then, I still love you now, and I'm proud of her. And I mean it. I lost touch with V because she, you come together, you must bond, you have to just put all the ingredients in there and mix it up and hope for the best. That from the director on down, it's nothing but a labor of love. And that was Applegates too, and that started a real, I've known Ed Begley before that, socially, but that started a friendship with Ed Begley that remains today as solid as ever, with Stockard. I have not been in touch with her in the last few years since I've been retired, but I haven't been in touch with anybody really that much. But we then ended up on stage together at the old Globe. Sales, we were going, it was supposed to be moving to Broadway, but Simon shut us down in San Diego and went back to rewrite. But and that never happened. But it started Lee Garlington, Savannah. She was Savannah Smith at the time, Boucher, Glenn Shaddix, all remained friends, all the way through after that, because of the solidarity we felt and the fun we were having doing that movie. And I absolutely loved my character. I did love her. She was shopaholic, alcoholic, Mary Kay, pink Cadillac driving woman. And I just loved it. That was, everyone you've mentioned, Tommy, are the ones that are of my heart rather than of my pocketbook.
Yeah. When I was 14 years old, my dad took me to see Nothing to Lose, and the entire theater broke out laughing when you first came on screen, because you had your cleavage showing, and you had the stone face and the southern accent. It was a great combination.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That I'm pretty sure, because even though I was a dancer, I was not somebody that exhibited my body. I might wear a miniskirt, okay, but I'm pretty sure that is the only time you will have ever seen cleavage, my cleavage on film. That I did feel like that was an opportunity to show that kind of woman. She was, very feminine there, and yet that not. And that you really are an old soul kid. because you do pick up on the detail of things that is exactly what I've gone after, which is those things. And I'll say that I just adored every human being that Martin Lawrence had around him. His entire crew of people that attended him or were working on the film in some way or another, they were sensational people. I mean, I didn't get to know him as well as I got to know his crew, because he was working all the time. Mm-hmm. They were in every scene, practically. But, and we were shooting up in the desert in LA, which was at a great site. And also on that one, I had a very interesting experience that years later, it just made my heart ache for him so much of what his life was like. But I have photographs of it too. Robert Blake came to the set one day that I think I really only had like one shot, and it was going to be at the end of the day, but they brought me in earlier in case they needed to do any pickups. It might have been the last day I was working. And because we were in the desert, and my little trailer, my air conditioning was so crazy that water was running down the walls. I mean, the air conditioner was working so hard that I couldn't be in my trailer, my little cubicle. So I spent most of that day in the hair and makeup trailer, because there was one woman that was head of all of it, that the set hair and makeup would go to set and be there attending. And she stayed in the trailer so that if anybody was sent back for anything to be done, she was there to do it. And it was me. And we sat in there most of the day. And I remember it was after lunch that we were back in there. And I think I was reading the paper maybe. And, you don't usually have music on in there. Mm-hmm. And the door opened, and I heard this big voice go, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" And she stood up from her chair, and a big smile on her face, because he entered the trailer right behind me at the door where I was sitting, and saw them have a big hug in the trailer, and he, clearly they knew each other really, really well. And it turned out that this woman's dad had been Robert Blake's hair guy and makeup guy on all the Berettas, that her father had been the guy that cut his hair, hung with him in vanity crafts, as we call them. And after her father died, he kept coming to her and, giving her a big tip to just trim up his hair. And he came out that day to have his hair cut. And he attended with her and I think she did say, she called him Bobby. And at one time kind of referred to him as Uncle Bobby. Mm-hmm. And she introduced me, and she said, "This is Susan," and, and I think he made some funny remark about, same thing, the cleavage and the boots and the face and the whole thing, and so he was being really warm and playful, and then he started asking me questions about me, and I answered them, and I said, yeah, but I'm more interested in your journey, because mine's been long already, but yours is twice as long and then some. And a tear formed in his eyes, and these big tears just rolled right out of his eyes. And he sort of dropped his head for a minute, and she stopped cutting his hair and put her hand on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, if you want to know, I'll tell you. And we sat in there for a good 2 hours when he talked about the beginning of Hollywood and as a child on set with our gang, and talked about it all and what he had endured as a child and made it through. And then went through really less about him in the business, but the business and as it had evolved and what it had become, what it had always been, always, and was based on it. But then where it was, how it was spreading out, and eventually is what it is now, which is on everybody's telephone everywhere. You can do it yourself. You know, it's a whole other thing now. And that's when I left, that transition. But a song came on that was like a doo-wop, a jitterbug song, and I don't remember what music was playing, but he said, can you swing dance? And I said, yeah, I can. And he opened the doors to that trailer and turned the music up, and we went out on the desert floor, on the sand, and jitterbugged this entire dance. And he was laughing like a child at the end of it, we were kicking sand everywhere. He was a great dancer, and I had this Robert Blake experience about, I don't know if it was a full year or not quite, before the murder of the mother of his child.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a juxtaposition to watch him go through that as to the guy that had endured and survived as a child, really, the things that happened to him, and I'm sure others, there's been a whole, thank God, a lot of the from the 1950s and early 60s child actors, they now have, they're like a watchdog group because of the exploitation of children in the business. It's certainly locked down much better, but Robert Blake's story is really...
it's interesting.
Yeah, really. And, it's just this real, here we go again, stumbles and arrives. That's what I'm saying. Here I am way up in the desert, doing this movie, and in comes this, I, as a child, was watching him as a child. Because I was hooked into the Saturday movies and the Sunday movies that were on television on my little Zenith TV that had a round screen, which would be like Turner Classic Movies now. I watched them every Saturday and every Sunday, and usually they were preceded or followed by one of the Our Gang things.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched him as a little boy. Of course, he was 15 years older than me, or whatever. By the time I was watching him as a little girl, he was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you're there, it's a very small, it's a big business in a small town that you cross paths with people, or that you have these experiences of running into people that you never, ever would.
Mm-hmm.
But then stepping outside of it, you really, the way it works, you've got to be all the way in to be, part of it. As a journeyman actor, I will say that. You have to be there and keep pushing and pushing. But when I decided, with sort of like once I got to Hollywood, it was like, well, okay, your dance career is finished. This is it. You're not going to be known as a dancer who acts. You're going to have to learn how to do this new thing. Right. And it was the same once my mother had passed away and I went back and sort of took a look at where the shift in the business was. And it was, you know, The Simple Life with Paris Hilton. And I could see that, okay, these are going to be cheap to produce. A camera crew, they don't care. This is the next way we're headed.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, now we have a couple hundred networks, not just 4. Or then PBS and Discovery. And then, you know, it's a bigger plate.
Yeah.
And that's good, that's fine. I had my day, and you're mentioning a lot of them that were just, you know, I couldn't believe that I was actually getting paid to do what I was doing. Because I was having such a wonderful time doing it.
Yeah. I was curious, Susan, so how do you know Lynn and Sean?
Lynn and I were, well, first of all, the play that Lynn and Shawnee met doing at the Old Globe in San Diego.
Yeah.
There was, I don't remember how many other actors, there might have been only one, because it was done in the same theater that we worked in, the Circle Theater, the small round theater.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend, Will, was in a play with them, in the play that they met doing, in the play they fell in love doing. And I think, I don't know, I might have driven down by myself even. I saw the play. I went, and it was the first time that I was at the Old Globe and sort of saw what the situation was there. And I met Sean and Lynn then, and Will would refer to them, you know, because he stayed in touch with them for a little while after that. And then years later, I was cast in a play for the Theater in the Round, a Northern Ireland play called Remembrance. Wonderful play. And Lynn, there was the play was the families of 2 widows, and a widow and a widower that meet in a graveyard. And both of their sons have died because of the conflict in Belfast. But one is on one side and one is on the other, and the old folks fall in love. They realize that they have everything in common because they've lost their child to the revolution. And the woman has 2 daughters. I played one of them. And the man has a son and daughter-in-law, and that's who Lenny played. So our scenes were never together, although sometimes we were on stage at the same time. It would be 2 scenes going on at the same time. And Lynn and I shared a dressing room with the 3rd woman that played my sister. And we became really, really good friends. And by that time, she and Sean were a couple. They were not married yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were primarily living in the United States. They hadn't gone back home yet. And but Lynn and Lynn, I think of Lynn like a sister from that experience. And you just have to love Sean, period. I mean, come on.
Oh,
Sean's just one of the greatest.
He's a gentleman, yes.
Knowing that they, you know, where I saw them in the play that they fell in love with, and knowing, you know, what I've known that's happened to them and for them since then, it's great. And that's where I say, like, once you get down the road at a long distance, you you have friends that are decades old, and you've been able to watch them grow and move on like you have. Everybody does,
Mm-hmm.
in one direction or another. And we were in touch, and then I knew they moved back. And every time, I got onto Facebook late because I just, looking at it, staring at a screen, it's like, whoa, no, I can't do this. But my niece insisted that I could see all these posts, and I did, and I began to find people. And that's when I got on there and was on there for a little bit, and I think I posted something that was from that play in the Throwback Thursday. And when it went, I named her in it. It was a picture of her and I.
Mm-hmm.
And she found me, and it was like, wahoo! And ever since then, we've been in regular touch. I probably bought 20 of her pussy power hats. Because I, got one from her, and then everybody around me goes, I want one, I want this color, I want that. So, I've kept her knitting business going, and I love what she's up to with her Frida tables and chairs and fabrics, and I don't know, she's just doing all these things. It's great.
Yeah, I've interviewed her 3 times. I'm having her back on next week for a 4th, but the first time I interviewed her, she was so touched when I told her about my car accident that I had 4 years ago that she sent me 3 autographed 8x10s in the mail at Christmas. I think it was at Christmas time or not too long after that. And it was just, oh, God, it moved me to tears,
Well, what was this accident? What was this accident?
It was just me and this guy. We were out drinking one night. I fell asleep in the passenger seat. He fell asleep at the wheel. We ended up in the middle of the road. We got out of the car fine, but then a car collided with ours and the impact hit us. I got the worst of the injuries. I was in a coma for 30 days. I woke up on my mom's birthday.
Well, that's significant.
Yeah. And
are you all right now?
Yeah, I'm still going through a long recovery. Other than I have to lose weight because I've gained so much weight since then from depression and stuff. I'm doing pretty good, and I'm pursuing my dream. And I have never felt so much better in my life.
Well, when you've got something that has impacted you like that, because that's a trauma that involves, like, a kind of stress that other people don't understand until they go through a trauma like that. I happen to understand it because I was made homeless in the 1994 earthquake.
Oh yeah, I was homeless too.
In 40 seconds, I had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Except a car that was unreliable, my cat, and my purse, pretty much. I was able to go through a window and get some clothes and things out, but my entire street collapsed. And I'm not saying that it has a physical recovery like yours, but when there's trauma like that, and then physical recovery, and then I certainly understand the weight problem, and mine went the other direction,
mm-hmm.
where I had no appetite. I had to remind myself to eat, and it became a problem. And I don't mean a problem like anorexia, but my metabolism changed because of it, and now I struggle to put on weight all the time. But the trauma of that really is PTSD. And, those of us that have experienced that, you have to learn the tools to manage it. It has to be managed. It's not something that you just one day wake up and it's over. It's a process, and time will help it But when you're facing something like, I can tell that emotionally that your weight is bothering you, and that this is something now you're going to have to really focus and deal with. Just look at it every day, because we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can do something today, even a little thing, something that you say, nope, I'm not going to eat that, or, you know what, I'm feeling this, so let me just get something that's good for me. And that might even be just a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Moment, that second, is to interrupt that impulse that is trying it desperately to cover several levels of pain.
I lost 30.
Kinds of pain.
I lost 35 pounds so far, so the diet's been going good.
Okay, but don't look at it like a diet. Sort of look at it, Tony. Look at it like this is you're in a competition, and that you're competing with that other voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And just think of me and be Irish.
I am half Irish.
No, what? I know you're not. Right? Kovac is not. Do you pronounce it Kovac or Kovac?
Kovac, it's Croatian, but my dad's mother was Irish 100%.
Oh, okay. Well, then you got it in you to do this. Not that you wouldn't have Croatian, because we pronounce it here in my town, because they pronounce it Kovac. And they, because all the river that I live along, the Monongahela River, which flows into Pittsburgh at the Three Rivers, and they form the Ohio. This river, all the way up and down this river, were all little ghettos. The ethnic ghettos of people coming as the country was being developed. And they sort of lived, everybody that came that was Scotch-Irish into Pennsylvania ended up, or not, lots of us, either in Philadelphia or in southwestern Pennsylvania. And it's the same way. And we have Kovacs, we have their Croatian communities. There's one little town on the river called Poland Mines, and that's what it was. It was mostly Polish workers that worked in that particular coal mine. And so when I saw your name, I wasn't sure how it would be pronounced, because there are different pronunciations for different names back here for sure.
Yeah, I get people asking me if I'm Russian, Polish, Czechoslovakian, Bosnian, Serbian.
It's an European name, it is. And, but, and the ignorant people here don't realize that every culture was individual there. I mean, everybody had their own culture, their own foods there. I mean, they were similar, but I had a great advantage because there were lots of families, Eastern European families here, and so we got the food, we got the pastry, we got all that good stuff as kids, because everybody's mom cooked differently.
Mm-hmm.
For you, you just have to think about how long it took you to put that on.
Yeah.
The weight, and you have to be patient.
Oh, yeah.
And do, we do, if we could only do for ourselves what we are willing to do for other people, it would be a lot easier ride, but that isn't really the way it works out.
Yeah.
Especially sensitive, artistic people. It's one or the other. Either it's full-on narcissism, where it's enough about me, what do you think of me?
Yeah.
Or it's we're artistically inclined for a reason, and that's sensitivity, empathy, compassion, all the things, humor. So you just be patient. There's not a deadline.
I lost 130 pounds in 2006 because my heart was in trouble, and I lost it within a year. I lost 100 pounds in 9 months, and then I kept it off, lost another 30 more. I can do this.
Oh my gosh, no, you're doing it. It's not you can do it. You are doing it. And that's pretty much, besides talking to goofballs like me, I'm sure it's not as goofy as me. No, Lindy's Lindy is. She is. She's just as silly as I am.
Oh.
But that's your job. Your job is to make sure you're here and healthy. And
Yes.
to call up people like me and remind us of joyous and sometimes difficult and work, but joyous times. And that our work moves to you. That is just the highest compliment that can ever be paid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're doing. Stay woke, for sure. Because you have been since you were a kid, obviously. Mm-hmm. All these movies. And I'm glad. Because you love what you do. And that is the key to a life of, depression is separate from misery. I can think of the most miserable jobs I could have been in or been stuck in when my heart was really somewhere else. But that's different from depression. Depression is a condition, I'm telling you now, my boy, every human being has it.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on how much of your intellect has been developed to understand. I see what's happening here. And I have suffered with depression all of my adult life. Because when you choose an artistic life, you're questioning yourself all the time. Mm-hmm. It's a not easy road to hell. It's just not. And it can put you in some of the darkest places. And I've lost friends to depression. And all I know is that life can be every single day just the most wonderful gift or a nightmare. And that is only controlled by understanding our brain, understanding the way it works, understanding why it goes there. That there's no reason to end it.
No.
There's just none. That part of it, I understood, and I've lost quite a few friends to suicide, and not one of them was a woman. And it started for me in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And I knew all of them very well. But I am grateful that as dark as it can be, and it can be, and I think those are the flip sides of what really creates superior art, whatever it is, whether it's a painting, a photograph, a story, film, whatever it is. You understand both sides of that street. And for us that do suffer with depression, you and I, what we have to do is learn to walk in the gray. Life is not black and white.
No.
It's anything but that. And I'd say, you're winning right now, Tony, and I just, whatever you're doing, do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm on a good start. I mean, I was in LA a couple of weeks ago. I got offered a movie role. Um, not this weekend, but next weekend, I'm filming the first episode of my own horror movie show. I'm going to be presenting a movie to people and stuff. I'm excited about that. And
Good.
things are just so profoundly looking up since this happened to me 4 years ago, because before that, I just let alcohol rule me. I wasn't motivated to do anything, and just it healed me and it changed me.
Well, it's a funny thing about alcohol, because I happen to think I'm not going to go into the realm of heroin or even these opioids, which are, there's just that aspect of big pharma and what's happened there. But I will say that I feel like alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs available, and it's legal.
Yeah.
And for me, was the worst possible thing for me. And I was not somebody that you would think was like alcoholic. But the way it affected me was immediate and not good, and every mistake I made that I can recall was made around alcohol. And so I get it. And for me, I just decided, I don't know how many years it's been, because that was not my primary drug of choice. I mean, I was hooked on cigarettes, because as a dancer, it was cigarettes, coffee, and diet pills. Yeah, man, when you're doing concert work and people are lifting you up, you better be. And that's what I'm saying. And I got that all evened out. And my problem now is that I need more weight. I need it. But I know it's hard for you on that spectrum. It is for anybody that is wanting to eliminate weight, but the flip side of that is not any picnic either, especially at my age, because I should be having some padding on that butt if I fall down, not break a hip. It's just, but it's not. And when we're thinking that we are the only ones, that we're alone in this, and that nobody knows how we feel, just hear me saying, bullpucky, baby. We all know. We do. You are not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone in it. It's just that everybody's running to catch up on their own. And that, in fact, is a little bit reassuring, my lad, because we're every one of us human, and that's what connects us. That's what really connects us.
That's so true.
It is. And that's why I've never understood racism in my life. I don't understand it. Pigmentation. We are the same. We are human beings. And we are fallible and weak and innocent and angry and messy and all those things. But we aren't alone. You're not alone. Not alone. I have walked your shoes, different size shoes, and probably red with high heels. But I understand. And you will too, because time passage answers a lot of things. And you will be, like me, Tommy, looking back with somebody asking you a question about a period in your life, and you go, oh my, I forgot about that. All of this will become part of a past. This is a distant past for you, for years. Physical, mental recovery, and also sobriety. But it doesn't feel a lot better to wake up and not go, oh my God, where was I and what did I do?
Yeah. I was.
It's a strong drug. It's a very strong drug, alcohol. It is not good. Some people don't have that gene. Some people don't. And they can have a cocktail here or there. They could have a cocktail every day, and it would never move beyond that because they don't have the gene. But we have the gene. We have it. If you've got any Irish in you, you've got it.
Yeah, my family's struggling with it right now.
Well, do you have support? Do you go to any meetings or anything?
I personally don't, but they do. They started going. Thank God, because I thought they were going to die. My mom, my brother is the absolute worst of it because they drink whiskey.
Well, I know you don't go on a regular basis, but, when you're at a struggle point,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't bad to just walk into one of those rooms and sit down. You may, introduce yourself as everybody does, and but other than that, you'll hear your life in different versions. You'll hear your experiences in different versions.
Yeah.
But you'll know that there is a support system, and if you reach out for it, whenever you need it, for however long or how little, it's there. And there are people in those rooms that know and know more than you, even. But I'm not sure if this was supposed to be an interview or if we were supposed to meet and talk so that I can be one of those people that you can call.
That's
and
it.
Say I'm having a rough moment here. Let's talk about it.
A podcast is it's an interview and a conversation piece, so don't feel bad. This has been very excellent, I have to say.
I'm glad you feel that way because it seemed to me like I was like, man, check your bio. You're just rattling on here.
Oh, let me tell you something. Occasionally I get a guest who does that right, and luckily each one, yourself included, is very smart and articulate, and I feel so dumb in the moment. That's why, I don't talk much.
Hey, that's okay because you're young. You are dumb. You're learning. How do you think we got to where we are? Are you kidding me? This has been a very different interview. I don't know how old you are, but your voice is young, so I know you're young.
I'll be 36 soon.
Okay, well, it's been a very different interview if you talk to this 36-year-old woman.
Oh yeah,
I was,
I've done that, and I'll tell you, it's like talking to myself. Not much to say.
Well, because you're at you're just at mid-mark. I'm in the last few scenes of the last act at my age. We just don't know. And the kind of life that one has to lead in terms of the stress level of what I did, I don't expect to live like my grandmother to be 98 or my great-grandmother to be 99. I don't see that happening because my body got, a lot of punches, including being in my early 40s and homeless, made homeless with nothing in 40-some seconds. That messed me up for 2 years solid before I was even able to say to my doctor, something's wrong with me. Something bad is wrong with me, and I need some help on this. And found the right therapist and just talked to her. Because my upbringing was as far away from Hollywood as you could think.
Mm-hmm.
There are 300 people in my village.
300 people.
Up until the last 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years, all the same families were still here. and the houses went to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Not that way now, because we're dying off, as is life. But let me tell you, from where I'm sitting right now, looking back over my life, and where I was sitting at your age, because I was definitely thought I handled alcohol at your age. Forget about it. Forget about it.
Yeah.
The things that happened to me, or things I said to people, or just, would never, ever have happened if I wasn't under the influence.
Yeah.
If you, at your age, understand there's a problem here, and I have to deal with this. Don't look at it like it's for the rest of my life. No, it's today. You're going to deal with it today. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less.
Mm-hmm. I was curious, Susan, what's your sense of humor like?
It's all over the place. Humor is it. As the great Stephen Hawking knew that was, life would be tragic if it wasn't so funny. There you go. That's me.
Yeah, Lynn loves it when I tell her dirty jokes.
Yeah, bring them on. My mother was famous for dirty jokes.
Oh, nice. Okay. This is one I told my supermarket cashier on Easter, and she's like, oh, God, I'm going to tell this to my 80-year-old mother. Why does the Easter Bunny hide his eggs?
I don't know. Why does the Easter Bunny hide his eggs?
So no one will know how tiny his dick is.
I wish my mom were here. That's a good one. I'll remember that one.
Oh yeah, I tell dirty jokes that women can tell their girlfriends when they're having a dinner party.
Well, my mom was famous in her church circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were waiting. Those Presbyterians, they were waiting for Mom to get there at the church circle so they could hear the dirty joke of the day.
That's such a contradiction. I love it.
Yeah, that's Irish women.
I had a nun in Catholic school who was famous for telling dirty jokes and being just dirty in general. She drank and she slept with random guys. I didn't know about it until I was 17. She came to visit after she had been away for a few years, and she was asking me a question like, how school and everything, and I was telling her about all the kids that were bullying me and stuff. And I said, fuck something, I can't remember what. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, sister. And she was like, oh, fuck it. And I was like, sister.
Yeah, we're all human. Whatever our jobs are, whatever the costuming is for it, whatever the front is, we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it depends upon fear. How afraid one is. And I think in this day and age, we've got to be fearless.
Yes.
We've got to be fearless in approaching and attacking whatever it is that's in our way. And you and I both.
Mm-hmm.
I have another big change coming that I need to sell this house and get on the West Coast, where I've just returned from, where my family followed me. My sister and brother both followed me west. My sister settled in Seattle and has a beautiful family and 2 brand new grandchildren and a 2-year-old granddaughter.
Oh.
So that family is all in the Seattle area. And then my brother followed me pretty quick after I'm the eldest.
Mm-hmm.
My brother's second child, my sister's the baby. And there's 9 years between my sister and I. I mean, she grew up in a different household. She grew up with older parents than I did as the first. But my brother was he's retired aerospace engineer, and he followed me because Drummond and Boeing and all these people, all these aeronautics businesses were in L.A., and he's still there. He's outside of L.A. He bought a house up near about an hour, 50 minutes up the freeway. And so I now need to dissolve 5 generations of a life here. The stuff that my great-great-grandfather did here, and my great-grandfather, my grandfather, stuff my dad collected. It's all in here, and I need to dissolve and sell and get small again. Get back into a small, manageable space, closer, when it's my time to move on. And I need to do it now because I need to have the energy to do it.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, every decade has its challenges and its great pluses. You're just barely coming in toward the end of your 3rd decade. And I'm at the beginning. I'm, of my 70s. So there's a lot of life in there between you and me. Between where my life is and yours is. And I will tell you, honestly, if you stay the best is yet to come for you.
Yes, I agree with you.
I mean, the 20s and the teens and the 20s and the early 30s are something entirely different. And once you just have to get satisfied with yourself, Tommy, and not thinking about being satisfactory for anybody else. And once you get that place, you can't imagine all the things that are going to open up. And you'll be ready for them then. Like you were not ready for them before.
Yes. Susan, let me close this out with 2 more jokes, and then I gotta get going. Okay. Let me think. Oh, how do you make your wife scream twice?
I don't know. How do you make your wife scream twice?
You fuck her up the ass and then wipe your dick on the curtain.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Now, that one I don't think would make it to the church circle.
No. Oh, here's.
I don't think would. Oh, although my mom would have laughed.
Yeah.
She would have laughed. Okay, give me your last shot.
Okay, this is the showstopper that everyone loves. Cinderella is about to go to the ball, and she's on her period, and the fairy godmother gives her these magic tampons and says, okay, you can go to the ball, but you have to be home by midnight or else they'll turn into a pumpkin. She says, okay, fairy godmother, I will. So 12 rolls around. Fairy godmother's pacing around the house because Cinderella hasn't shown up, but then she does show up at 4 a.m., and she's stumbling drunk, and fairy godmother's like, where were you? You were supposed to be home by midnight. And Cinderella's like, I'm so sorry, fairy godmother. I met this great guy. His name was Peter Peter.
That probably would have made it to the church.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking to anybody I worked with, like Lenny, who we mentioned before, I forget who you mentioned before.
Yeah, Jennifer.
V. Neal.
Yeah.
V. Yeah, any of them. Please, give them my best. Tell them that I loved them then and I love them now. And for you, you have my number now.
Yes.
And I mentor right now. I have 4 kids, 4 youngins. One's your age, and they range down to age 18 that I'm mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get yourself in a place that you're struggling, you're starting to really struggle, please pick up the phone.
I will, Susan. I will. And this was such an honor. Like I said, you're one of the great character actresses, and I thank you so much for your time.
Listen, it's been my pleasure, and everything you brought up has given me now this sort of wings to remember that, yeah, there were tough times, but there were also wonderful, wonderful experiences, and every film you mentioned was one of those, so I thank you for centering on those, and I wish you, I will be thinking of you. When I'm thinking and I'm putting out energy in the universe, I'll be thinking about you, Tommy, and I'll be sending it your way, kid. So, you're just at the beginning of the rest of your life, kid. I know it's cliche. Honestly, it is going to be far beyond anything you thought it might be. And I've lived that. And I can tell you that. So you just understand your weaknesses and keep them in check. You've got to be the boss of them.
I will,
Let
Susan.
them be the boss of you.
I will, Susan. Thank you so much.
Okay.
God bless you.
And, I'll be thinking about your mom and your brother, too. I'll be putting it out for the family. And, honestly, Tommy, you can call me if you want to talk something through. Sometimes I'm pretty good at it.
Okay. I will.
Okay?
I will.
Thank you so much for thinking and having those good thoughts of me. And I'm sending my best for the rest of your future, kid, so don't let me down.
I won't. I won't.
Okay?
I'm never going back to my old life because I'm just too happy at my new one.
Good. Now, the old one was the lesson to be learned, Tommy.
Yes.
That's it. That was what that was about. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you know, now that you've seen it, now that you can recognize it, there's no reason or excuses anymore. It's just what it is. It's the new life. And better is always better than that past crap. Just let it go. And just stay in the day. That's it. It's day to day. Stay in the day.
Stay the day.
Get off the phone right now.
Okay, Susan.
And I'll try to think of a dirty joke. I'll try to get one together if you call me some other time. So it's my pleasure, and I don't know what you got there, but I hope it was, okay.
It was very uplifting, say the least.
Good, that's what we want. We want to spread that, because there's a lot of hate and fear out there now.
Yes, there is. There's too much.
Yeah, we got to fight it every day, so I'm with the good fight with you, Tom.
Okay, Susan.
Hey, buddy.
You have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Susan Barnes. Ain't she a sweetheart? I'm very lucky when I find that one rare guest like Susan or Stephanie Hodge or Abby Haggard, who I expect to be on the phone with them for 30 minutes and it turns into 2 hours because they're so insightful and positive and uplifting, and there's more to them than just their careers. And I'm just so lucky and so pleased that I get to have that on this little podcast of mine. So thank you so much, Susan. And I would love to hear Susan tell dirty jokes. I'm sure she's great at it, being that she comes from an Irish family, and Irish people love gallows humor. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.